Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company?
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Moelle Cox and Michael Pittman Jr. to the right side. The give is to Taylor. Cuts off a block. Veering to his right. He's at the 10. He's at the 5. He's going to score. You know it. Touchdown. Shotgun snap for Jones. Looking left. He's going to take a shot and throws a laser towards the pylon. And that is a catch for Michael Pittman Jr. There's a penalty on the play, but Pittman scores a touchdown as Pittman snared it in with one hand on a 21-yard absolute dart. Thrown by Daniel Jones. Under center, Jones on first down. They give it to Taylor, left side. He's at the 20, 25, 30, 35, down the sideline, 40, 50-yard line, still going. Taylor up in the sideline. He's got a chance. 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor takes it 80 yards to the house. Daniel, shotgun snap, looks left. Stands in the pocket. Now he's flushed to the right side. Looking.
He's got him.
Caught at the 2-yard line. And that is a touchdown for the Colts. This time it's Josh Downs with a score. Fourth red zone trip today for the Colts. A little jump pass to Jonathan Taylor. Cuts off a block. He's at the 10. He's at the 5. He's going to score again. Touchdown!
He's really, really good. He seems like he makes play after play, long run after long run, explosive. He didn't have as many plays, and I guess the sweep was technically in the pass game, but he didn't have as many plays today as he's had throughout the season, but he's been really big in those situations throughout this season. So, yeah, just a dynamic football player.
Obviously huge to get a win at home, especially a division opponent, was big. I thought our guys did a great job defensively, holding the 14, and then offensively scoring 38 points there, and I thought JT had a hell of a game. Obviously the big runs there. Daniel played awesome again. O-line protected well. The pass rush was getting there. I thought it was just a great team win.
That's how it sounded yesterday. Matt Taylor from the Colts Radio Network. A little bit of a cameo from Rick Venturi there as well. You heard from Daniel Jones, Shane Steichen. Colts yesterday, as was expected, a resounding win over the Tennessee Titans. And let me begin this show by saying this on a Monday, okay? Officially, I want the city of Indianapolis to understand, grasp, absorb, and soak in what I'm about to say. You Colts fans, no matter where you're hearing my voice in this town or nationwide, I know there are people that listen to the show that live in Virginia or Florida or Colorado that are from here that are Colts fans and listen in. This is a surreal but a real statement. We have reached the point with this team where, yes, there is still this disbelief, but this by record is not only the best team in the National Football League. This by record is not only a team that is starting to look over their shoulder to find out who possibly can even be hanging around with them to unseat them as the number one seed in the AFC for home field advantage. And yes, we are just now entering into the halfway era. I get it. And the schedule gets a little bit tougher maybe. But two things here. Number one, we have reached the point where this football team, the Indianapolis Colts, when they win games resoundingly, I'm not saying that we are back to the time period of, yeah, this is what I expect. Wake me up like midway through the third quarter so I can see that they're up 35. We're not totally there yet. But you look at a game yesterday and you go, yeah, I mean, they didn't even play their best, and it was never in question. Part of that's Tennessee, but part of that is the balance and the overall authority of this roster and this team. Whether you're talking about the way that and Cam Ward does have some talent, does have some skill, and I think the pass rush is still of question, but defensive backfield, for example, an area where they have been clearly, and we are aware of it, shorthanded, and yet you got guys, Chris Lamont comes in and plays well, makes plays for them. You get Liatu Latu, you're trying to get going. You're trying to see why they were so excited about having him as the number one defensive player selected in the year that he came out in the draft. I thought he got a sack yesterday. They gave him credit for a half sack. There was some pressure there. They had 4 sacks of Cam Ward. Probably would have liked to have seen more in that area for certain. But Tennessee, with exception of their loans, that early score, you never felt like there was any sort of threat. Anytime they got the ball, you're like, okay, they just did not get any footing. Part of that's on Tennessee, but part of that's that defense. And then offensively for Indianapolis, Michael Pittman Jr. with arguably the best catch he's made as a pro. And this guy's been a pro's pro. He's played with a bad back. He's played where he was literally the only guy on the field and everybody knew where the ball was going. And now what you're seeing is this is Michael Pittman Jr. is, to use a term, that guy is just a dog, right? And like he is now getting his flowers of the patience that he's shown of being the guy that never sulked, never complained. I never once heard Michael Pittman Jr. the last 2 years say, guys, look, I'm like the only guy out there. Everybody knows where they're trying to get the ball. And I never heard him sulk about it, never heard him complain. And yes, they had little bits and blips of when they had help for him. I mean, Josh Downs obviously showed promise young, Jonathan Taylor. But in terms of getting it all going in one area like they are right now. And yesterday was a game where the Colts almost kind of sleptwalked through the first half, you could say. And yet, just by continuing to go through the motion of what they do, you saw how big the separation is. And the Indianapolis Colts are at a point now where you look at wins, and I'm not saying that we're spoiled, but we're already getting to that point of, yeah, I get it. They were supposed to win. I get it. What jumped out at you? I don't know. They pulled away. We knew they were going to. It was great. I was able to go get like a pretzel and a beer at one point, and I knew maybe I'd miss a score, but there wasn't going to be some miraculous comeback. This is an unbelievably solid and balanced football team. And I've said it now for probably 3 weeks. Credit to Chris Ballard. The areas in which he was building them that we all were rolling our eyes over are now starting to pay off. Their offensive line is solid. Their quarterback play is, at this point, still elite. Their wide receivers are plentiful. Their tight end is dynamic. And their running back is game-changing. And the Colts are now 7-1, and then they got a huge assist last night. And you don't think it. You don't think it's a big assist last night. But as you were sitting back and you were enjoying the fruits of a late 4:25 kick, which was unusual, and by the time you get home, it's like 8 o'clock probably, and you're sitting there and you're kicking back and you're like, man, and you're looking at the rest of the scores around the league, and then the late game comes on. Sunday Night Football. The Steelers and the Packers. And at one point, it was difficult to determine. I was like, wait, I can't remember. Is this game in Green Bay or Pittsburgh? Because you could hear the fans, right?
And the uniforms.
And the uniforms, yes.
God, those were awful.
You didn't like them?
I hated the Steelers uniforms. Those were disgusting.
The Steelers have like a number of throwback uniforms that are weird, right?
They're just like, ugh. My name's Eddie Garrison, by the way, if you're just tuning in.
Eddie Garrison, the other voice you hear on this program. It is Query and Company here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Eddie, that Pittsburgh game last night, yes, you can look at it and say, okay, did Green Bay give Pittsburgh some sort of a wake-up call of now where there's like, I'm not going to say a desperation for Pittsburgh, but a greater sense of urgency with Indianapolis coming in now with the Colts going on the road to Pittsburgh next week. I don't know about that. What I know is this. As I was watching that game, and for the better part of the first half of that game, it kind of felt like Pittsburgh, I'm not going to say was in control of it, but you're looking at it going, okay, and then Jordan Love, I thought Green Bay showed an offensive balance as well. Yeah. And the Packers end up winning that game, and once they got the lead, you just kind of, man, Pittsburgh just couldn't get anything going in the second half. But nonetheless, it doesn't sound like a huge difference between, going into that game, what their records were between Pittsburgh winning and losing that game. But follow me here. As I was watching it, I'm going, okay, Pittsburgh's coming in 4-3 and 5-2 does not sound like a huge difference. Just doesn't. Yeah, okay, whatever. They're fine. They're still like atop their division, and that division's crumbling. Baltimore yesterday got a nice win, but they're 2-5. Cleveland's a dumpster fire. Cincinnati's a dumpster fire. But now, what that game did and where this is a huge cushion is you give yourself a little bit more even margin for error, because I was thinking about it with that game beginning and saying to myself, even though the Colts have the late bye, so they have one more game played, I'm thinking, okay, the Colts are going in at 7-1 next week. If Pittsburgh wins this game last night, they are still then in the loss column within putting themselves in position to, in the loss column, be tied with Indianapolis by winning at home next week. As it stands now, even more margin for error for the Colts, because going into Pittsburgh, you're looking for any break you can get. They got one last night. Green Bay did Indianapolis a major solid. And the Colts now, when you look at it, Eddie, when you look at right now, not just the AFC, but the NFL in general, you say to yourselves, and I want everybody to hear me out here and almost pinch yourself. Okay, the Colts are 7-1, and you think, it doesn't feel like still they're like clicking on all. Maybe I'm not giving them enough credit. It doesn't feel like it is surreal to think they're the best team in the NFL. But who is better? Who scares you? The Colts have a home game tomorrow in the playoffs. Who worries you coming in here? There are only, even if, I'll put it this way.
In the AFC, I think there's
two.
One team.
You say one?
One.
Who's the one?
Kansas City.
What about Buffalo?
Nah.
New England?
Even though they cruise by, Carolina, they still didn't look great yesterday.
Okay.
And I have questions about their defense being
New
able to
England?
stop the run. No, they've played a very favorable schedule like the Colts.
That's the thing. For the Colts now, I'm not going to say it gets real, but the schedule gets trickier. Not necessarily hard. Matt Verderem's going to join us 2 o'clock today, the NFL writer, and he'll give us better indication on this, on what he thinks of it. But if you look at the next 3, okay, Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh, that doesn't overly concern me, but you can't have a half like the Colts had yesterday where you're just kind of going through motion against Pittsburgh. Not that Pittsburgh's some high-flying, elite-level offense, but they are pretty sound defensively. Pittsburgh, you got to be aware of, okay? Atlanta in Germany, just kind of one of those tricky games because you just don't know. Atlanta is good defensively. I don't think Atlanta's terrible. And then Kansas City in Kansas City is going to be tough. But even with that, who jumps out at you? I mean, Seattle and San Francisco, that's it.
Yep.
There are your tests. There are your remaining tests. The rest of it, the AFC South, okay, whatever, right?
Yeah, and the fortunate thing for the Colts is that they have Kansas City coming off the bye week. So they have a week to prepare.
Now, here is another thing. And Indiana football was dynamic on Saturday. We will get into that. Indiana basketball yesterday. And then the Pacers are a mash unit. I mean, there's plenty to get to over the course of today. But I want to begin with this when it comes to the Colts. We were just talking about it off the air, but I think it's a wonderful problem to have. A wonderful problem to have. If you look up the definition, Eddie, can you do me a favor, please? Because This is an age-old discussion and argument. Can you look up for me the criteria or the definition, if there even is one listed, for the NFL awards of what the criteria is for most valuable player? Now, it goes without saying. The NFL MVP, Jake, you're an idiot. Yeah, we know that. You're an idiot. The NFL MVP is the guy that is the most valuable in the league, right?
Okay. A most valuable player award is handed out each year to the player adjudged to be the most valuable in the NFL that season.
Okay? Now, can you look up Offensive Player of the Year?
The NFL Offensive Player of the Year award is an annual award given by various organizations to the player who is considered the top offensive player during the regular season. These organizations include AP, PFWA, and Sporting News. The AP's award is recognized at the annual NFL Honors Ceremony.
Now, by those definitions, and I'm literally splitting hairs here, I realize, and it's a good problem to have. But the Indianapolis Colts right now on their roster, through 8 games, the Indianapolis Colts have both the Offensive Player of the Year and the Most Valuable Player. Both. And both of them are not the same person. Now, there have been times where you look at it and you go, oh, this guy, you know. But in this case, the top offensive player and the most valuable player in the National Football League, AFC, NFL, whichever way you want to look at it. I mean, take the entire planet. Jonathan Taylor yesterday once again showed, I believe I heard Shane Steichen say, it's the first time that a back has had three touchdown games in a season?
He's had 4.
Is it 4 now?
Yeah. 3 consecutive against
3
the Tennessee
consecutive,
Titans.
that's what it is. So, either way, Jonathan Taylor, when he breaks free for an 80-yard run, and Jonathan Taylor is going down the sidelines, I'm watching Jonathan Taylor, and I'm thinking back to something. I'm thinking back to when I was a kid, and I believe it was Drew Pearson was an NFL wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys. Kind of a showman type, not a bad player, not elite, but a good player. And Lynn Swann. I'm going on the way back here, I realize. And both of those wide receivers, 2 wide receivers for 2 of the noted franchises of the late 70s, early 80s. And I'm a kid. And as a kid, I'm just enamored by the National Football League and the aura of the NFL. And the aura of the NFL when I was a kid was that it was this, the voice of John Facenda telling me about like hard hits and ice bowls and Lambeau Field and Jack Lambert and the Oakland Raiders and all of that, right? And it's all tough guy grit image stuff. And then 2 of the marquee players that I'm seeing in the NFL, Drew Pearson and Lynn Swann, and I see this NFL Films little vignette about how both of them in the offseason take ballet classes. And this dichotomy goes through my mind as a little kid, like, wait a minute, how can big-time NFL, tough, John Facenda, steam coming off the helmets, how can these guys be taking ballet lessons? And then I see them explain it, that they take ballet lessons not because they want to be Baryshnikov, but rather because there are times and situations where they have to have body balance of towing the line and not falling out of bounds and tiptoeing while they run. And even as a little kid, I thought, that's brilliant. This yin and yang of the tough football style, and yet in that moment having the finesse. And for the Colts, there is an element of that on display each and every Sunday because we were told going into it like 4 years ago when Chris Ballard built this team that it was going to start in the trenches and they were going to be a tough team and they have a running back and they just run the damn ball. Quentin Nelson, Quentin, you're going to be like Hannah, winning Pro Bowls. Just run the damn ball. And all of us were saying, what are you talking about? It's a finesse league now. It's a passer league now. But what we saw on display as Jonathan Taylor's running down that field is that yin and yang can exist all in one. You have a team that can be the tough Tyler Warren, Quentin Nelson, smash mouth football team. But then you also have one that can pop loose with a Jonathan Taylor, and as he's running down the sideline, he's balancing himself, and he has that finesse. And breaking through a line. Now, he had a line that was the size of a hole that was the size of Meridian Street. But there's a yin and yang in the way the Colts can beat you. They can out-physical you offensively by throwing it to Tyler Warren and getting yards after catch. They can out-physical you by throwing it to in the corner of the end zone to Michael Pittman and having him use one arm to ward off the defender and the other to corral in a pass. And they can pop Jonathan Taylor between the tackles and or off guard and then get him on the sidelines and allow him to use that finesse and balance himself down the sidelines while sprinting away from everybody. All of it was on display. And in watching all of that, what I was thinking to myself is there's also this yin and yang of what's the most valuable player and who's the player of the year. The offensive player of the year right now in the National Football League is Jonathan Taylor. What he is doing is on a different level than any of his peers. What he is doing is putting away games or salting them. What he is doing is separating himself and his team in a finesse or a tough way, whichever way is needed, week in and week out. He is the best offensive weapon in the National Football League in 2025. And the most valuable player in the NFL is not Jonathan Taylor, who is extremely valuable. And everything I just mentioned, you would say, wait a minute, Jake, that defines value. Correct. But the most valuable player right now in the National Football League, hold the phone, whoever would have guessed I said it, the most valuable player in the NFL in 2025 is Daniel Jones of the Indianapolis Colts, because Daniel Jones is not only playing at an incredibly efficient level, Daniel Jones is not only not turning the ball over, taking care of the football, controlling possessions, figuring out methodically each and every play where the ball needs to go, either to get more yardage on a play or to get out of what was a bad play based on the look that is there by going through progressions. He is absolutely masterfully delivering on what his coach, a quarterback whisperer, has awakened in him. And yes, maybe that's because he has Jonathan Taylor behind him, like he had Saquon Barkley early when he had a good year in New York. So wouldn't that make Taylor more valuable? Understood. But Daniel Jones, in terms of replacement of the next guy, you take Jonathan Taylor out of the mix for the Colts. You put another running back in. You get 60% the production out of the backfield, perhaps, but you still can throw to Tyler Warren. You still can throw to Michael Pittman. You still can throw to Josh Downs. You still can roll out Daniel Jones. You still can throw to Alec Pierce. You take Daniel Jones out of that offense and put in Riley Leonard, who is a younger player, or put in Anthony Richardson, you are limiting yourself now on the number of progressions, the number of reads you can go through, the number of times you can get out of a bad play. Daniel Jones is the most valuable player on a team that happens to have the guy that is the best offensive player in the NFL. All of it spells together to say this: the Indianapolis Colts are 7-1. The Indianapolis Colts are the best team in the NFL right now based on what they've done, based on the manner in which they're doing it and the number of ways in which they're doing it, and based on the fact that right now, nearing the halfway point, right now, the Lombardi Trophy, winning and getting yourself into the Super Bowl, goes through Indianapolis, Indiana, no matter who. Now, we'll see if that sustains. Now things get not harder, but a little more tricky. But another team in the area that is the best in the country, I truly believe it. Indiana football is the number one team in college football. They don't make mistakes. They take control of the football. They force you into bad situations, and they absolutely impose their will on people, and they did it with UCLA. And their basketball team had an exhibition against Baylor yesterday. Don Fisher was on the call for both. He joins us next. We'll talk about that. Loaded show today. Mike Chappell joining us. Matt Verderam joins us. And reading all of your comments in 8 words or fewer on where you think the Colts are. We'll do it all over the course of today. A Monday, victorious Monday, yet another one, 7 out of 8 here on Query and Company on The Fan. Don Fisher is, in fact, on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. JavaHouse.com, by the way. Search for my name on there. You can see the query bundle. Use Jake25, get 25% off. Don Fisher joining us now. And listen, a busy weekend. Don, I'm going to give you the choice because we had the introduction to seeing the basketball team against Baylor yesterday, and then obviously Indiana's just continued impressive play on the football field on Saturday against UCLA. So I will give you the choice. Basketball, football, which one we want to lead with here?
Well, because I better get football out of the way first since it was 2 days ago and I could forget a lot of things. But all that said, the football team was really impressive on Saturday, taking on a team that had gotten new coaching staff, not new players, but new systems and new formations and all those kinds of things. And a lot of folks thought that Indiana was going to have some problems with UCLA. It didn't come out that way simply because it started out with 2 plays in an interception by Aiden Fisher, running in for a touchdown of 25 yards. And I'm telling you, you could just almost feel the air come out of the balloon for UCLA after that play. And I'm not saying that they didn't play hard the rest of the first half or whatever, but the game got out of hand fairly quickly, and Indiana just dominated the Bruins in that contest. And it wasn't even Indiana's best performance of the year. It was really just kind of what you would call an average effort on the Indiana part. And I say that because Indiana just had control of the game the entire time, and you never felt like there was going to be a problem.
Yeah, it's interesting, Don, because and whoever would have guessed this was going to be the case in the fact that the Colts are almost like India. It's like Sunday we're seeing almost what you saw on Saturday in the fact that when you have a team, you're like, yeah, okay, they are playing at such a high level that even like a lethargic's the wrong word. But yes, I mean, a game where maybe you aren't even clicking on all cylinders and you're that much more superior than the opponent. In Indiana, I thought we saw that on Saturday. I'll be honest. I was thinking about this today on my way in, and I thought, if I was going to ask Don Fisher a question of concern about Indiana football, I don't know where it would be. I just don't. I mean, maybe at times kind of quote going through the motions, but Don, it just seems like a football team that doesn't really have a weakness that you are hoping the other team exposes. Is that fair?
Well, it is at this point, Jake, because as we know, injuries can take their toll, and we never know, how that's going to play out. And Aiden Fisher got hurt in that ball game in the first half. He did not play the rest of the ball game, and I think he is one of the really key pieces of personnel on this roster that they can't afford to lose simply because he is the leader of the defense, and he's a good portion of the leader for the entire ball club. He has got all that experience under Curt Cignetti. He has been one of the more vocal guys in regard to how he goes about his business, communication on the field, communication with his teammates. And again, the linebacking core is a thinner core anyway. They've got 3 really good linebackers in this ball club, Isaiah Jones being the third, along with Elijah Hardy. But when you look at Indiana, if they have a weakness, it would be at certain spots depth-wise. But other than that, you don't see anything. And you certainly don't see it in the way they go about their business on the field. They are methodical in the sense of being ready to play, being focused, how to play hard, physical, relentless, fast, efficient. Just about every term you could use from an adjective standpoint, this team is just excellent at all of it. And Buck Sewell has constantly said here in the last couple of weeks he thinks that Indiana is the best team in the country, and he includes Ohio State in that mix. Now, that's saying something because the Buckeyes are really good, and they have been for a long time, and their defense this year is spectacular. But I think Buck really believes that, and I think Indiana fans ought to believe it too, because they have basically shown that in every game they've played, that this team is for real.
Don, it's so interesting to me. By the way, Curt Cignetti says Aiden Fisher is, quote, probable for Indiana's game coming up Saturday, at least as of right now, at Maryland. Yeah. It's interesting when, I look each Sunday evening and I read there's a national, a group of a panelist on ESPN that ranks where they believe the college football playoff rankings would be if it were to start right now, which is ludicrous because it doesn't start right now, right? There's a lot of football to be played. But it does give barometer as to the perception of teams and what people think the respect level. I thought it was interesting this week. 12 panelists, 7 have Ohio State number 1, 5 have Indiana number 1. So the difference is not near as far. The gap is not as far as I think a lot of people would believe, because Indiana has the best win on the season, winning at Oregon, and they just don't have a lot of weakness. Now, I wanted to ask you about this. Mendoza has been so good. I think he's right now the best quarterback in the country and maybe a Heisman frontrunner at that point. Don, in your opinion, when you look at the precision in which he is able to deliver the football and Indiana's passing game is able to click, is it quarterback that can see and put the ball exactly where it needs to be for his receivers, or is it receivers, and notably Cooper and Surratt, who have been outstanding, that are able to have the right route run to get themselves right where they need to be? Or is it the perfect marriage of both?
It's literally the perfect marriage of both, because Fernando just had an okay game on Saturday. He wasn't spectacular. I mean, he was when he threw those 3 touchdown passes, but he had a 15 for 22 completion percentage in that ball game, which is, in his parlance, or at least in the parlance of what people think about Fernando, if he is missed more than 3 or 4 passes in a ball game, everybody seems to say, well, that was just not all that great a performance today. And yet he was 15 for 22, 168 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also had 5 rushes in that ball game for 45 yards and a touchdown. And then his brother came in. His brother came in the fourth quarter and did essentially the same kind of things that he was doing. So all I can tell you at this point is, and here's the one thing you've got to know, this receiving core is really special. And E.J. Williams had a great game on Saturday. Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper were just very average in regard to how many passes they caught and what was accomplished with those passes. But it just tells you how complete this football team is right now, in the sense of what they've got on the field, not necessarily depth-wise at certain positions, but this is just a very complete football team, and you see it in both the offensive side and the defensive side.
Don, to kind of put a bow on football, 2 questions here. Number 1, how many times did you practice saying Nico's last name leading up to Saturday's game? And then number 2, I believe last week on the show, Jake asked you about Fernando Mendoza, and you said you hadn't interviewed him yet, and you got to do that on Saturday. Is there anything that we need to ask you to speak into existence that you need for good fortune?
Well, the first thing you need to know is I did practice Nico's last name about 1 million times and still got it wrong a couple of times on Saturday. So that wasn't a perfect performance by any stretch of imagination. Iamaleava is how you say it, but I screwed that up 2 or 3 times. and my co-host on the show, as far as the pregame, halftime, and postgame, John Herrick, he got it wrong every time he said it. So I know it wasn't easy. But that being said, and what was your second question? I'm sorry.
I said last week on the show you said something about not having the chance to interview Fernando Mendoza yet, and you got to write that ship on Saturday. Is there anything else you need us to ask you to put into good fortune?
Well, anything that you say is probably going to work out to my benefit just at this point in time, because nothing seems to be going wrong for Indiana right now.
Don, can you just simply mention that you'd like to see the Pacers get healthy, and then that way, boom, we're back to square one here in a week? Because I mean, hey.
Well, I can tell you this: what the Pacers did in that opening game of the season to get to double overtime and missing basically about 4 different players, and then Nembhard gets hurt on top of that. I'll tell you what, Rick Carlisle is one of the best coaches in the NBA, if not the best coach in the NBA, with what he's been able to accomplish with this Pacer organization. He's always been a great coach. Everybody knew that, and obviously had an NBA championship at Dallas, but that was close to getting another one last year. It probably should have happened if the star guard doesn't get
Halliburton doesn't get
knocked
hurt.
out.
Yep. I'm convinced they win that game. I
I am too.
Okay, Speaking of basketball, by the way, and great coaches. We don't know whether Indiana has one now, and I agree on Rick Carlisle, by the way, and Darren DeVries. But what I like is this, and I wanted you to be able to elaborate because Indiana wins an exhibition game over Baylor at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. But I like the fact that Indiana, I know nothing of their roster, and I think a lot of people don't. I mean, I know Lamar Wilkerson is a guy that's a volume scorer, and I know that, Tucker DeVries is a guy that can shoot and can score probably in waves as well. But it seemed to me like, at the very least, Indiana took care of the basketball and is going to be relentless defensively. What other observations jumped out to you?
Well, the thing that does jump out at me is how resilient they are getting down. I think I told you this before, that I went to Puerto Rico with them this summer. I didn't broadcast any games. I was just there to build relationships with the coaching staff and with the players, just to get to know these guys, because everybody was brand new, including the staff, with Darren DeVries as the new head coach. But what I saw down there was exactly what I saw in the game on yesterday. They fight their butts off on defense. They are really good defensively in that sense, and they bought into defensive play. I think this team is talented. I don't know how talented, because they're going to come up against teams in the Big Ten, and as the season goes along, that are going to have much more talent than they do. But I just don't think they're going to ever be beaten easily by anybody, and I could be wrong about that. We're way, way away from getting started with the season still, over a week, and the real tests won't start for a while. But the key with this basketball team, number one, they are really well coached. Darren DeVries, every place he's been successful. I love his demeanor on the sidelines, how he deals with players coming in and out of ball games. He's got discipline. They are tough. They are mentally tough, and they've proven that in 3 of the games that I've seen now. I've seen them play 4 times. I saw them play Puerto Rico, which they demolished. Then they played the same Serbian team twice, won both of those ball games, and now they've beaten a Baylor team. It's really a pretty good basketball team, at least personnel-wise. And everybody's finding themselves, because both of these rosters yesterday were brand new to their respective coaches. They were all brand new guys. So in that sense, all I can tell you at this point is I love what I see in this basketball team. I love how hard they play. And I think the fan base is going to fall in love with them, because they are fighters. They will battle you right to the end, and they've proven that in 3 ball games now.
And I get the feeling that, again, it's very early. But, I go back to, and my brain works weird sometimes in terms of being able to, recall something way too long ago. But if you look at that group that Mike Davis had that went to the Final Four, with Kyle Hornsby and Dane Fife and Tom Coverdale and Jared Odell, you always had a couple of guys on the floor that could almost contagiously start hitting threes in waves, right? And I think Indiana's going to be a volume 3-point shooting team, and there are going to be games where that's going to be massive for them, and then there are other games where sometimes it just doesn't fall, and that becomes contagious as well. That, to me, is going to be interesting, because I do think they have some guys that can shoot the basketball, and I think he's going to give them the green light to do that. But we shall see. A lot of basketball between now and the end of the year. Alabama A&M is when the Hoosiers get things started. That is going to be a week from Wednesday. Football at Maryland coming up on Saturday as well. Don Fisher will be the voice for all of it. Don, appreciate the time as always, all right?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jake. I appreciate it.
Don Fisher joining us on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line as the Hoosiers again. Alabama A&M, man. I might have to see if Dr. White wants to go to the game. Dr. White was the all-time, I believe he was the all-time leading scorer. Eugene White, my high school principal, who, of course, went on to become the superintendent of Washington Township and IPS, the president of Martin University. He was at the time of his graduation, I believe he was the all-time leading scorer at Alabama A&M basketball history. He's in their athletic Hall of Fame. I know that. We should go down and watch that game coming up a week from Wednesday. All right, Mike Chappell going to join us about 15 from now talking about the Colts. And there was one thing I think that was overlooked in terms of a real positive yesterday, and has nothing to do with Jonathan Taylor, has nothing to do with the blowout victory. I'll explain next. Little modernization of Schoolhouse Rock.
That's De La Soul.
I love De La Soul, man. Me, Myself, and I. De La Soul, 3 Feet High and Rising. And whenever you got a song, De La Soul, unbelievable. And I'm not saying they didn't get proper due, but they're very underrated. Very underrated. PM Dawn, underrated. For what it's worth. One underrated aspect of the Colts win yesterday. There was a ton to love about yesterday. Matter of fact, Eddie Garrison, I will put this trivia question to you.
Okay.
There's only one nitpick I would have from the Colts yesterday.
Oh, the Colts specifically? Okay.
Let me rephrase that. Only one nitpick I have of the Colts game yesterday.
Okay. Is it the fact that Tyler Warren did not get a touchdown on National Tight Ends Day?
No, good.
Is it the fact that the Tennessee offense was moving the ball down the field in the first half with little to no resistance from the Colts defense?
No, but good point. Not it. You're not wrong on either of those things. I mean, those are fair critiques, but not what it. I was laying in bed thinking about the game.
Now, when were you laying in bed, Jake?
3:48 this morning.
Okay.
And I'm staring at the ceiling, and sugar plum fairies are going through my head of the Michael Pittman touchdown and the Jonathan Taylor run and Daniel Jones making the right calls and Shane Steichen after the game congratulating, Chris Lamons for playing solid and Carly Ursay-Gordon taking notes and then high-fiving guys and Grover Stewart on the video board making a joke about the fact that the kids that had to draw his picture made him look like a giraffe and, just fun all the way around. And all of it's going through my mind, and yet there was one thing where I was the Grinch. There was one thing where I was the Grinch, right?
Trying to think here. Doesn't have to do with your fantasy team, does it? Because, I think you're beating me right now, and I still have Mr. Rice going tonight.
It was not that.
Okay. Drawing a blank.
Yesterday was perfect.
Oh.
The 4:25 start, you got to get up, do what you might do on a Sunday, whether you want to go for a walk, take the dog out, go look at the leaves in Brown County.
Make sure you are driving safe.
Go to the Hobnob restaurant. Do you want to be careful because the wet leaves in particular are dangerous. Go to the Hobnob in Brown County, see the beautiful turn of the leaves.
That's still open?
Go to church, open until mid-November. Go to church, etc., right? Any of it. Perfect. Blue sky, colors, leaves falling in crisp, beautiful apple red, golden hue, all of it. Nice early 60 or low 60s to start the game, dropping down in the mid-50s. It was football, man. Like it was fall, autumn football weather. Just perfect, just gorgeous. And I thought to myself walking in, what are we going to see here? This is awesome. This is awesome. A later start. You got a chance to still get things done on a Sunday. Gorgeous. Nice little breeze going. We're going to see Jonathan Taylor running along the sidelines. We're going to see Pittman making an unbelievable catch. We're going to see Liatu Latu get in there and get a half sack. We're going to see it all.
We're going to see Daniel Jones just F it. Alec Pierce is down there somewhere.
And what better way to do it than to get together on a day like that and sit indoors? That is the perfect day. If we're going to spend $130 million additional dollars on a stadium with a retractable roof, why in the world was it not open yesterday? But I digress. The good news for the Colts is they came out of that game relatively unscathed from an injury standpoint. Anthony Gould had a knee they're going to have to look at. And Daniel Jones, keep an eye on this. I'm curious of this. Late in the game, Daniel Jones did have a hit where he did land awkwardly on the back. He didn't land on the back of his head, but the back of his head hit the turf pretty hard. And yes, seemingly okay, but sometimes when guys do go into concussion protocol, those symptoms come on over the course of the week. And that is something I think that is going to be interesting to keep an eye on.
Josh Downs was one of those players.
Yeah, exactly. Downs. And then remember, Downs practiced, I think, and then, you know what I mean?
That was Pierce. He was coming back from the concussion, practiced, and then suffered a setback, and then ended up missing another week.
This from Jeff with a J. Hobnob is open until November the 2nd. So you got time still to go in there, go down, and enjoy it. Mike Chappell, WXIN, and CBS 4 joins us next. And later, we will read for you some of your 8-word summary of the Colts through 8 games and some text as well. At 239-1070. You can also always text me independently because sometimes I'll call people afterwards, especially if they text me something and they're like, dude, you're a moron. And then I call and I'm like, nah, you're not wrong. I probably am. My number is 317-523-9288. It's 523-9288. The text line for the station is 317-239-1070. Like Chris, who chimes in, I knew Query would complain about the roof and was talking to my brother about it. We landed on good teams benefit from perfect conditions. No reason to bring variables into it. My 2 cents, time to let the $130 million add-on go. That's a lot of money, though. It was the thing to do at the time. Little reason to open it and have the sun get in people's eyes. Okay. This from Dispenser, as he calls himself, meaning retired pharmacist. Yeah, why was the roof closed? 4:30 start. The sun was not an issue. It was the perfect day for outdoor football.
Are we sure
yes,
that's
I was
why?
there. I do think that the first – I get it.
No, are we sure that's the conclusion on that person's name being Dispenser?
Oh, yes.
It's
because
one letter off for being something I would be interested in.
Well, it says, no, dispenser. And then in parentheses it says, I'm a retired pharmacist.
Yeah, I know.
Not the kind you're talking about, Eddie. Java House, Peel and Pour guest line. Again, javahouse.com, the website. There's the Query bundle on there. Now, that means that you get Colombian coffee, you get the Liquid Science, which is the refreshment beverage rehydration after a workout, also Wrangler Energy. You get it all with the Query bundle. You go to javahouse.com, you put in my last name, it'll take you right to it, and then you put Jake25, you get 25% off. Basically, we need you buying the bundles so that we can continue to do a radio show. That's kind of what it comes down to. Mike Chappell joins us now on said guest line. He is with CBS4 and WXIN Fox 59. Chap, I mentioned this earlier. It was one of those, I think we've reached the point, and whoever would have guessed this, at 7-1, where the Colts have a game and they win that resoundingly, and you walk away and go, ho-hum. They did what I thought they'd do, but nothing certainly jumped out at me. Pittman had a great catch. Taylor had a great run. But I did think that they were a little slow getting out of the gate at times. Am I too critical?
Well, they scored in the first 3 possessions. The first one they mucked up with that throwback to Doolin, and they settle for the field goal. Then they had a couple of bad series in the second quarter. But no, I think what your point's accurate is that they've gotten so efficient that when they're not efficient, you think, hey, what's up? Well, it's not supposed to be easy. It just isn't. The old saying, the other team's on scholarship too. Well, this is like more than that because these guys are getting paid too. So, although I guess nowadays guys on scholarship are getting paid as well. So, but I think I go back to the Manning years, and he'd go for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and you think, God, is that all you got? You're not feeling it today? But that's really where you want to be as a team, as an offense, to where and we always kind of joke at Daniel Jones is he seldom talks about the good plays. He sort of indicates, well, we left some things out there and we could have done this. And that's probably a good way to do it, to be more critical instead of saying, hey, we were pretty good. They're scoring on like 60% of their possessions, which is ridiculous, getting points. So, but that's where we are. And I've said from the start, and I'm going to say this is sustainable because they're not doing anything crazy. They're just executing. They're not turning the ball over. This is 6 games without a turnover. But you could say, yeah, Taylor's being special, but he's still not had that game. 22 carries for 230 yards. He hits you with like 2 shock plays a game. He had 153 yards and 2 touchdowns. He carried about 12 times. That's ridiculous. So that's why I like what they're doing. And I just don't have the time to look it up. But this is the number 1 offense in yards, the number 1 offense in points, and they've yet to have a receiver with 100 yards. I just think that's probably this is probably the first time since sometime through the first 8 games that's been the case. I just don't have the time to look it up because it would take too long for one little neat stat. But when you got everybody doing something well, your expectations rise, and that's why I think this part is sustainable. The offense is sustainable.
Chap, 2-part question here, okay? Number 1, who is the Colts' best offensive player?
Jonathan Taylor.
Okay. Who is the Colts' most valuable offensive player?
Daniel Jones. I'm sorry. I'm one of those guys that I do believe the MVP generally is the quarterback, and I'm not opposed to that offensive player of the year because I think you can see this is kind of like in baseball to where I don't think you can have an MVP on a losing team or a team that doesn't make the playoffs. How valuable were you? That's why there needs to be an outstanding. You can be the best player in the league on a crappy team.
By the way, Andre Dawson, 87 Cubs, MVP, last place team, and I think that was the last time it happened in baseball. But yes,
so you take it away and what they were last place team?
Yeah.
So
no, I hear you.
That's the argument. So and again, it would really change things. But take one of those players away. Jonathan Taylor or Daniel Jones, which would have the most impact moving forward?
Correct.
It'd be the quarterback, and that's not. Again, Taylor's on pace for 1,800 yards and 20 touchdowns and all that stuff. But I think Steichen could find a way to manufacture a run game that wouldn't even remotely do what this one's doing. I'm not saying that at all. But I just have a hard time when the quarterback has the ball in his hands every play, and he's playing. Again, Jones isn't playing lights out. He's playing really, really well. But I'm one of those guys, and I'll go to my grave that unless there's not another player, another quarterback that's doing what he's doing. I just think it's a QB award because of a lot of things, and that's why I'm totally in favor of Offensive Player of the Year. I thought he should have got it in what was it 21, and I think the receiver got it. Cooper Kupp, was it?
That's right.
Had the Triple Crown in receiving, which is great, but I thought Taylor did every bit as more. But it's a good discussion, but that's where we are.
What player, Mike Chappell's our guest on the Java House Peel and Port guest line, what offensive player has most benefited from Daniel Jones?
Michael Pittman, maybe. He's already matched his career high in touchdowns. Probably him. I'd say Tyler Warren, but no, Michael Pittman. I think the way that Jones has gained a trust. The touchdown by the left pylon, that's trust. That's total trust that Pittman's going to either make the catch, which was one of the great catches that was lost.
But, Chap, what's interesting about that is I think you could also make the argument. I don't disagree with you, by the way, but I think you could also what's fascinating to watch is that, yes, Daniel Jones has to trust Pittman before he makes that throw, right? And puts, but at the same time, the receivers, to an extent, I know that by definition, their job is to run the perfect route every time. I get that, right? But there has to be a trust in the quarterback as well that if I'm going to go out there and I'm going to run this perfect route and whatever else, and I'm going to turn around, the ball is going to be there, gosh darn it. And we've seen that in this town with other quarterbacks. But it feels like there is and I mean this as no disrespect to, whether we're talking about Sam Ehlinger or Anthony Richardson or guys that we have seen of late, it just feels like this receiving core really is starting to grow an appreciation and respect level for Daniel Jones and that he has the attention of his huddle.
Yeah, and we talk about the trust in the receiver quarterback. The trust that he had on that 50-yard ball to Pierce, where over the last 15 yards of the route, Pierce is boxing the DB out. like you see in a rebound. And then that he came down with the ball. These guys are awful good at 50-50 balls. And then you get times where Tyler Warren is wide the hell open. It's amazing how they scheme him open. But that's why it's working, and it's nothing that's extraordinary in what they're doing other than executing. That's why I say what I like about it. It should sustain itself because either Jonathan Taylor – Steichen made a good note the other day when he was talking with us that someone asked about the way Jonathan Taylor's going off in the second half. He was averaging like 6 or 7 yards a carry in the second half. And that's because, as it turns out, through 7 games, they had thrown the ball like 60% of the time in the first half. And then it flipped in the second half. And whether that's how they want – remember, his whole thing is throw to score, run to win. And was it the first drive or second drive where the first drive where Taylor had a 12-yard run, and then there were like 9 passes.
They never went back to him, right? In that, yep.
Right. And you're thinking, well, and until that stupid play to Doolin, it just didn't work. But it just shows you that they've got a good feel for what's working, and at some point they're going to go back to Taylor. And the great backs, whether it's him or I just remember Barry Sanders all the time, where you hold him and you hold him and you hold him, then he goes for 60 on you, and you thought you did a pretty good job until it's like, well, we held him for 50 yards on 12 carries. Well, what about the other 3 carries? So that's what Taylor's giving him. He's only averaging like 18 carries a game, which is really a low number. It's normal. I thought he'd be like at 21, 22, but they haven't needed to. And we're going to see. The schedule gets tougher. We've said this all along. The schedule gets tougher. Now, I thought Berlin would be a really tough game with Atlanta, but I can't figure Atlanta out.
Yeah, Atlanta to me, Chap, and obviously they got Pittsburgh between now and then, right? We saw the Steelers last night, and the Steelers are very susceptible. But Atlanta to me, and I bring that up because you're right. I mean, going over to Germany and playing Atlanta, the Falcons are intriguing because I think defensively they're pretty sound. Now, I mean, it's not like I'm sitting here watching quarter by quarter of Falcon football, but if there's an area for Atlanta that can present a little bit of an eyebrow raise, it would be their defense from what I've seen, but maybe I'm wrong there, right?
Right. Well, and then again, you get I'm not that sold on Pittsburgh. I'm just not. But these guys haven't won in Pittsburgh since Peyton and Dominic Rhodes, I think it was in whatever it was, 2007 or 8 or whatever it was. But then after the bye, you go to Kansas City. That's going to tell you a ton. And then you're home with Houston. So it gets tougher. You got Seattle, you got the Niners, who I'm not sure how good they are. So that's why this was so critical to get out. I thought they'd go 6-2. I'm not going to quit banging my horn on that, but 7-1. That's really sets you up. They've almost got the over in Vegas. I think it was 8.5. So it's really kind of fun to see. And then the expectations will grow, which is a good thing. The past 3 or 4 years, whatever, where they've just not gotten things done and the fan base is PO'd, that's a good thing. Your fan base should demand more and demand playoffs and all this stuff. And when you don't get there, they should be mad at you. I
think the fan base should be upset yesterday the roof was closed. Your thoughts?
Yeah, but it's the fan base, and it was one of those borderline games where it was a little chilly. And Indy fans don't like chili.
A little chilly. It was. It was.
Hey, it was chilly in the press box. It was chilly in the press box.
That Java House, Eddie. They got hot cocoa on the Java House peel and pours. Right, you can get that 25% off. Chap, when you look at Daniel Jones, and I was thinking about this yesterday, and maybe the way I word this is going to come off convoluted. When Shane Steichen and the way that this symbiotic relationship he's got going with Daniel Jones, and I keep going back to it and wondering this, do you believe that Daniel Jones, and it's a moot point now because he's playing at a high level, but if you go back now and you try to put the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together retroactively and see how it all makes sense, do you think that Shane Steichen selected Daniel Jones as his starter because he felt that eventually that was going to lead to the trust from most teammates, from a higher number of teammates, or simply because it's who Shane Steichen trusted?
It's who Shane Steichen trusted. And then because I really believe if you'd taken a poll in training camp or whatever, this team was still very much behind Richardson. I really believe that. The fan base was. I can still remember like the first practice where Jones takes the first snaps, and then they bring Jones or they bring Richardson in for the next series, and the fans go crazy. And you're thinking, oh, really? So this is a perfect match. Two obsessive people at their positions, at their jobs, which is what you want. I mean, Peyton Manning was totally obsessed with the job, and with Tom Moore and Howard Mudd and all those guys. That's what it takes. And I would like to know, to give Shane Steichen some truth serum and find out when he knew that Daniel Jones was the guy. And I'm not buying in the least it was late August. I don't believe that at all. I think it was much, much earlier, to where he saw what Jones had in him, and I think he really believed that Jones was done dirty by the Giants organization with how they didn't do things around him the right way. I would love to know when Steichen decided, boy, this guy, we can do things. Go back and look at what Steichen did with Gardner Minshew. They came within like one pass of winning the AFC South. And has Minshew done anything since then? No. So I think that he got the absolute most out of Minshew and got him like $15 million from the Raiders, which good for Minshew. But I just think that this was a perfect match, and at some point early in the process, whenever it was, April, May, June, whatever, I think Shane really knew that Jones was the guy. Now, playing at this level, I don't know. Again, I don't think he's playing off the charts. But he's playing darn good. You know, the 700-yard ratings and the first 8 games and all that stuff. I think he got 3 interceptions. I think that speaks volumes to how when you put the right guy.
They take care of the football, right? I mean that is such a huge part of it, Chap, right? And
at the end of the season, if you look at the takeaway giveaway, the top 5 teams are almost always playoffs, maybe division winners, and the bottom 5 teams are awful. So it is the most significant, stat in wins and losses as far as getting to the bottom line. But 6 games, I think the most they've had here, maybe in the air, is like 7 in a season, because things happen. You get tipped balls, you get fumbles, you get a guy dropping the ball at the goal line. So that's pretty impressive.
Mike Chappell's my guest from CBS 4 and WXA on Fox 59. He is the dean of writers when it comes to covering the Colts. He's on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. Chap, when you assess the Colts right now, and we've all talked about it, if they're going to get over the hump, if they're going to push in, one would assume that means they're going to make a trade before the deadline for defensive help, whether that be pass rush or defensive backfield, 6 and 1/2 dozen the other perhaps. Question I have for you is this. Fine. And I think we've all accepted the fact that Chris Ballard is we would assume going to make some sort of a move. What assets do they have to give up? What goes on its way out to get the Colts help back in?
Just draft picks. I don't see them having to give up a player. You don't really see.
He loves and covets. He loves draft capital though.
Yeah,
Will he part with it?
I understand it. But when you're sitting here at 7-1 and things have really got, I don't believe in my heart that Chris Ballard thought they'd be 7-1 right now. He thought they'd be good. He really did. But I would question if Chris said, "Yeah, Mike, I thought we would go 7-1." I think, not so sure. So I think it does alter your approach. Go back and look at how he's handled this season. He's never given out $60 million contracts to a safety and a corner. and giving Daniel Jones $14 million because they knew that they had holes to fill, and what they'd done in the past largely hadn't been enough, although the quarterback thing is what's held them back. But I just think this will be a situation where everyone in that building will agree that we need. I'd trade for two players. I'd trade for a corner and an edge rusher. If I could only get one, I'd take a corner. And I'm always an edge rush guy because I think an edge rush guy can do so much. But they are so down the depth chart in cornerbacks. I know they're going to get Mooney Ward back in a couple of weeks, and I know they're going to get Jalen Jones back perhaps this week. But I just think they need help at corner. And I just don't think they'll need to give a player. It'll be a 5th or 6th round pick or whatever, and I'm okay with that. It's a lesser level of giving up the 13th pick to get DeForest Buckner,
right,
back in 2020. I'll do that every day if I can get a player that's been what Buck's been, and if I can get somebody, maybe it's somebody that's on his rookie contract.
Chap, not to cut you off there, Buckner, I want to add on to this, though. It's not even just that DeForest Buckner is a great player, and he has been a great player, but DeForest Buckner is also, and you and I aren't around it to that level, but by all account, this guy is exactly from a locker room and film room and just over and huddle presence. He has been everything you would want.
When you hear him say he's a horseshoe guy, they overuse it, but I think of 3 or 4 players, and he and Quentin, people like that. Those are the guys that are foundational players. They are, and it's the entire package. It's leadership. It's how they interact with the community, but the locker room, and then they're darn good players. I still am. I wonder how DeForest Buckner would be viewed nationally if he had been with Kansas City or Baltimore or Buffalo and been a playoff guy throughout his career instead of a super duper player on a team that's not quite good enough. So I credit him as much as possible for being loyal to Indianapolis. Maybe his family just loves it here. I don't know. He was going to get paid wherever he went. So I really enjoy seeing him get success and teams trying to block him, and he just runs through them and smothers a quarterback. So I think I probably enjoy this as much for him and a Quentin as anybody, because I know what they mean to the franchise and I know what they put into it, and good for them.
Mike, the Colts have had a long lineage of stellar running backs, with Eric Dickerson, Marshall Faulk, and now with Jonathan Taylor. Is Taylor on pace, and Andrew James for that matter, is Taylor on pace to become the best running back in franchise history with the way he's been performing in his 6th year?
Yeah, probably. The only thing that's going to keep him from setting the franchise rushing record is enough years. Is he better than Edgerrin? Gosh, they're different players. It's hard to put. I wouldn't put Dickerson and Faulk there because they had so much of their success elsewhere. But he and Edge, what's really interesting is he's one rushing touchdown away from Edgerin's career record. I think Edge has got 64, and JT's got 63. And Edge played quite a bit more games than JT did. The best running back ever. Oof, boy, this will be a really good discussion. Michael Pittman said, "Yeah, he's on a trajectory for the Hall of Fame." And I didn't say, hold on a minute, because you've got to do it 5, 6, 7 years of 1,500. Edgerrin had four seasons of 1,500 yards, and Taylor will have had, if this keeps going, 2 extraordinary seasons. It takes more than that to get in the Hall of Fame, but that shouldn't diminish at all what he's doing. So best ever. That will be an interesting question in a couple of years if Taylor is still here, because do you re-sign him when his contract's up? I don't know. It would be tough. Yeah,
Taylor has more diversified himself, though. To me,
right,
in terms of running the football, he's up there the best of anybody that's come along through here, probably. But we've talked about this a lot. But Edgerrin James was just such a good blitz blocker, and Taylor's done a better job out of the backfield with receiving the ball. Obviously, right? He has really diversified his skill set, but Edgerrin James seemingly just had all that right out of the womb. It was like boom, go. You know what I mean?
He said at Miami, he was told that if you can't pass protect, you can't play. And I still think Edgerrin is the best pass protector I've seen here as a running back. Falk was close, but Edgerrin he just stuck his face in there. Some guys do it because they have to. He did it because he was good at it, and he realized that was part of his job. He wasn't quite the receiver that Taylor is because he was not here enough in the off season to where they worked on it that much. But boy, Edge was so fun to watch, and 370, 380 carries. He personified the one back offense because he was the one back. But Taylor, it's funny because yesterday was the 80-yard touchdown. That's not his longest run. He had an 83-yarder against Houston in 2021, I think it was, that he didn't score on. So it's just amazing what Taylor can do, and he's only after 8 games. So I hope he, knock on wood, I hope he stays healthy, and I'd like to see if he can do what he did in 2021.
Chap, do we see a trade? If you had to guess, are we going to see a trade?
Yes. In my mind, the question is it one or two? I just think, and maybe it's I don't know which one's going to be easier to get. It's got to be a team that's not in the playoff hunt now. Cincinnati, they've got a couple players. I would assume Hendrickson. I've never considered him a possibility just because of his contract. But Miami's got a couple pass rushers. Jalen Phillips, I think, is the one. He might work because he's got an okay contract. Cincinnati's got a couple guys I'd be interested in, and they're not going anywhere. They keep waiting for Joe Burrow to come back, and it's going to be too late by then. So I think there'll be one, maybe two trades before is it next Tuesday or next Wednesday, whatever it is, the 4th.
It's a week from tomorrow. Yeah, week from tomorrow.
Right. It just there's too many reasons to not do it, and with trades it doesn't normally take a monster draft pick. It takes a third-day draft pick. So in this situation, certainly you need to do it. I think they will do it.
All right, we'll see what happens, Chap. I know you guys will be covering all of it, WXIN and CBS4. Appreciate the time as always.
You guys be well.
All right, Mike Chappell joining us on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. We come back. Matt Verderam, by the way, about 30 minutes from now. But something that happened last night in Pittsburgh that there's more and more chatter about, and it includes here in Indianapolis. And I've got my own thoughts on who's to blame next. I was reading the texts that come into the show. Thank you to those that texted. Even if you want to send a text that you, like, there was one person that was texting, like, every day. I actually found it kind of funny that was like, I can't believe he still has a job. And so I like messaged back and was like, hey, I get it, whatever. And I can't believe you'd respond to me. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the whole idea of interaction here, right?
Did you offer to watch him work for a day and criticize him for a day, see how he likes it?
Listen, it comes with the territory. I totally understand it. We have a lot of, with this job, Eddie, it's funny you mentioned that, though, honestly, because I thought about this. Our job is to talk about sports.
It's to entertain and educate.
Educate and entertain, yeah. And to opine about sports. And oftentimes in doing that,
you like that
means,
word, don't you? Opine?
Huh?
You like that word, don't you? Opine?
I do. But to offer perspective on sports oftentimes means critiquing the performance either of players or coaches or general managers, etc. And while, yes, I would love to come on here every day and just be like a cheerleader for it all, the reality is that you go into a sports bar and people are sitting there talking about sports, which is what I like to think of as this show, is just men, women sitting around talking sports, right? And so in that capacity, it is only fair if for 3 hours a day I sit here and I talk about a decision made by Chris Ballard that I disagree with, or a coaching strategy of Rick Carlisle that I thought was the wrong one, or, Purdue football made this mistake with this player or whatever it may be, okay? All of that, then it is only fair that the same could be thrown back at me. It would be completely hypocritical for me to sit here and spend 3 hours being a critique of other people's performance and then getting overly sensitive to their critique of mine. So, I mean, I'm there for it. Now, oftentimes, more often than not, if I run into somebody, yesterday I was at the grocery store and the woman next to me was wearing a Bengals sweatshirt, and I said, man, rough day to be a Bengals fan. And she said, oh, I know, we were at the game today, and we talked for just a few minutes. And then a couple of aisles later, she says, by the way, am I going to hear you talking about that on the radio tomorrow? And I said, well, I'll be talking about it. Whether or not you hear it is, I guess, up to you. And she laughed and said, well, I recognized your voice, which was both flattering and also it always surprises me. But I said to her,
wait, is she a listener? Do we have a number?
Told me mostly used to listen when I was in the morning show, and now her husband, avid listener in the midday show.
Okay.
So I don't think we got to 34.5 on that. But Ariel was her name. Very nice woman. And anyway, I said to her what I always say to people, tell me what you don't like about the show. You know what I mean? Like, I want to know what areas you think that we could do, like, better in that area.
Did you say more, Eddie?
Everyone says that, including Nick, who just said, Mr. Garrison is really the perfect sidekick for you, Jake.
Oh, let's go.
I thought he meant Greg. So here's the thing. As I was watching the Steelers game yesterday, and someone pointed this out, that when they were watching the game, I'll read it to you right here on the text line. Jake, I've been a season ticket holder since the 70s. I assume this is someone from Pittsburgh because it's a Pittsburgh number. We've watched a steady decline in the fans at home games. An all-time low last night was that someone had placed a Green Bay Packers sign over the Steeler country sign that is behind the goalposts. I don't blame the Green Bay Packer fan, but to allow that to stay up through the entire game just tells you about the fans in Pittsburgh. Here is the reality. This is an increased thing everywhere. I'll go back to when the Colts hosted their very first playoff game. The very first time the Indianapolis Colts hosted a playoff game, not the Colts, but the Indianapolis Colts. The first ever NFL playoff game in the city of Indianapolis. Now, the first time the Colts went to the playoffs was 87. They went to Cleveland. But the first time they hosted was in 2000. They played the Tennessee Titans, the famous game where Eddie George ran away and looked up at the video board, the Jumbotron, and later admitted that he looked up while he was running to see where the defense was in comparison to him, behind him. That game afterwards is when Bill Polian made a public point of his displeasure of the number of Titans fans that were in the building. And at the time, I thought to myself, that's true, but you drafted Peyton Manning, and when you drafted Peyton Manning, you set up Colts ticket offices in Knoxville, Nashville, and Chattanooga, Tennessee. In Tennessee, people could buy Colts tickets. So is it possible that somebody who had bought Colts tickets to watch Peyton Manning, then the Titans get into the playoffs, and they're like, you know what, my neighbor's a huge Titans fan. He's going to give me $500 for these tickets. Boom, I'll watch it on TV. I understand the frustration people have of visiting teams coming into a stadium. I totally get it. A year ago, I thought it was very bizarre that they had all the security at the Lucas Oil Stadium wearing orange shirts and blue pants when the Bears were in town, for example. Very odd to me. But there are certain fan bases that travel. Not even that they travel, but they are national brands that have fans in an area that don't normally get to go see them. There are fans of the Dallas Cowboys that probably have never been to Dallas in their life. There are fans of the Green Bay Packers because of the national branding of it that have never been to Wisconsin. And there are fans of the Pittsburgh Steelers the same. But for all of these franchises now, if you want right now to go to the Steelers game in Pittsburgh coming up Sunday to watch the Colts, so the Colts game in Pittsburgh, if you want to go to that game, and that's a 1 o'clock start, is that right, Eddie, on Sunday?
Yes.
If you want to go to that game, you can go right now to Steelers.com and pick your seat anywhere in the place. And there are tickets available on the Steelers website. And then on the website, when you click on Buy Tickets and you see all the tickets available and you click on it, it says, this is an official Ticketmaster resale option. The day and the second, and I get it, but the day that NFL franchises linked in business partnership, and I love Ticketmaster and StubHub and all those. I love it. I love the option. I'm somebody that loves going to games, and I love the security. I went to a concert in England and had to use the British version of StubHub, or one of them. And it was great. And bought the tickets, boom, sent to my phone, good to go. Love it. I love the option. I'm not here to poo-poo it at all. But the second that these teams officially, from a business standpoint, partnered with them, then you can't come crying to me about people that are coming in the building that are not your regular season ticket holders. I bought them on your website. I went right to Steelers.com and bought tickets as a Colts fan. And guess what? I bought them through a third-party app that you partnered with and that you are getting part of the kickbacks for. There you go.
You know, Jake, oftentimes I hear about this with, Pacer fans, and, they have a select season ticket package. They do like 10 games or whatever, half a season, full season or whatnot. And they'll sell like the tickets to those big games, like the Lakers, the Warriors, etc. The big teams that garner a lot of interest because it helps pay back the cost of the season ticket price itself. And with Aaron Rodgers making his return, or with Aaron Rodgers facing his former team for the first time since he departed with Green Bay, I'm sure the ticket price was through the roof. And so that Steelers fan, if it was a season ticket holder, knew that there was probably a Packers fan out there that would be willing to pay, whatever the $200, $300, $400 for those said tickets. And next thing you know, boom, there you go. You've got, a quarter to a half of your season ticket for the season paid off. You just made that money back a little bit.
Listen, Clemson. I bought Clemson season tickets. I can't go to every Clemson game. It's 8 hours away. I bought Clemson season tickets, and I put my tickets for Florida State and Louisville up for sale 1 year. And it paid for my entire year. Paid for my travel, my hotel, my season tickets, everything for the year. I don't know whether the person
so you're
that bought
part of
them,
the problem too, Jake.
I am. Absolutely part of the problem. Okay, there was something yesterday that happened in the game on the broadcast that I'm not the only one that noticed it. I heard it right away. But it made sense to me. It made sense to me why a beloved figure was watching the Colts. I'll explain next. So a point that was made, and I noticed this too. I immediately noticed it. And I can't even recall what it was during the Colts game that they were discussing. Oh, I know what it was. In talking about young quarterbacks in Cam Ward, I think everybody knows that the rookie record for interceptions in a season is that of Peyton Manning. And during the broadcast yesterday, Charles Davis brought that up about Manning, and then no sooner did he bring it up, but he said, Peyton Manning just texted me and said, did you really have to mention that statistic? You could have overlooked that part. And Manning's always been pretty self-deprecating about that aspect of his resume. But it is interesting that statement, and Denver was playing at the same time. And that statement showed that Manning was watching the Colts. And I have made reference, I talked pretty often during the NBA Finals about one of the things that I loved about the Pacers' run was that it cemented the relationship between Reggie Miller and the city of Indianapolis. And when I say that, people are like, Jake, what are you talking about? There's always been a great relationship with Reggie Miller in Indianapolis. True, from Indianapolis' standpoint. And I'm not saying Reggie Miller hasn't always loved Indianapolis. But literally, as soon as Reggie Miller's playing career was over with, he moved back to Southern California. I don't blame him in any way, shape, or form on that, right? But he came back really for work purposes and then an occasional franchise marquee event or honorary thing. Like when David Benner passed, he obviously came back to honor him. I mean, he's been a good person, but Reggie Miller seemed when he left here to have a neutrality about him when it came to basketball. And then during the NBA Finals, he's right there with his son wearing a jersey, leading the cheers, and he was a fan. He was a fan as opposed to a broadcaster. And with Peyton Manning, Manning had such a love for Indianapolis, and Manning had such a for Peyton Manning, I think it was so important because he grew up in New Orleans where his dad had played for the Saints. And yes, his dad played for the Oilers. But Peyton Manning, it was so important to see, I think, the relationship that his father had with New Orleans, that when Peyton Manning was drafted by the Colts, it was in the eyes of Peyton Manning, okay, they are getting more than a quarterback here. I now need to be a pillar of this community. And he, don't get me wrong, he's done so. I mean, obviously the Children's Hospital and other such things. But in Manning's eyes, it was the one reciprocation for everything that he did for the franchise. Turning his owner into a billionaire, building a $780 million stadium, winning a Super Bowl. The one thing above and beyond the money and everything else that Peyton Manning, in the back of his mind, I think always wanted in return and hoped for in return was that he would retire, spend his entire career in, and then become a staple part of the community of Indianapolis, living there for the rest of time, just like his mother and father do in New Orleans. And when Peyton Manning was released, even though I realize, as Jim Irsay said, they were up on an airplane talking it out and figuring it out and whatever else, but they just couldn't come to any other solution with Andrew Luck waiting in the wings. I think that hurt Manning so bad that when he went to Denver, finished his career as a Bronco, won a Super Bowl, and then it was like, okay, that's where he lives now. That's where his kids go to school. That's where he's seen on the sidelines at Nuggets games. And he is like Mr. Denver. But his son now is going to a private school in Chattanooga. Yes, he still has residence in Denver. But if you really pay close attention, Manning himself is starting to come around a little bit. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm not saying that like he needed to do that. But he was on Sunday night on a national broadcast with, I believe it's Teddy Bruschi, right?
He was on Sunday NFL Countdown.
And it was with Teddy Bruschi, right?
Yeah, it was Teddy Bruschi and a bunch of other guys.
But he was saying to Teddy Bruschi, like, look, you're late to the party here on Indianapolis. Like, I know you Patriots guys are the last ones to come in, but, like, you got to get in on the Colts. Like, the Colts are, and he was talking up the Colts, and this recapture, this revitalization of the Colts franchise, they're doing it with a quarterback that has ties to Peyton Manning. They're doing it with a quarterback who was coached by a coach that was very special to Peyton Manning, and they're doing it with a quarterback that was not the immediate replacement of or the guy that was the reason for the departure of Peyton Manning. It is a clean separation. It is a different era, and Manning's all in. And I think that's what you're seeing. When he sent that text, yes, he was watching the Colts game because I do think that his affinity, his love, his part of being part of this organization I'm not saying it was ever totally compromised, but he's finally now more open with it. Matt Verderam next. 2 o'clock hour in Indianapolis. For that matter, it's the 2 o'clock hour everywhere in the Eastern time zone. My name is Jake Query, Eddie Garrison, the other voice you hear on this program. We call it Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Perhaps our most popular guest. Certainly he is among the most energetic and knowledgeable. He is with Sports Illustrated. He's a fan of Indianapolis. He is an East Coast guy that has a keen eye about the NFL. Matt Verderam joining us from SI on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. Matt, I'm curious of this because you offer a national perspective. Are the Indianapolis Colts the best team in the NFL?
Yeah, right now they are. Yeah. I mean, look, the Rams beat them, and the Rams, if they could kick a field goal, would be 7-0, but they can't kick a field goal, so they're 5-2. I can also sit here and say, look, if Adonai Mitchell understands the rules of football against the Rams, they're undefeated too, right? So I think right now, look, the big national argument against the Colts is two-pronged. One is people don't believe in Daniel Jones. Okay, fair, fine. Oh, he played terrific this year. The other argument is, well, they played nobody. Well, they played the Broncos, they won. And they went to Los Angeles, where everybody loves the Chargers, and they beat the daylights out of the Chargers. And I would argue, look, yeah, they've otherwise beaten bad teams, but other than the Cardinals game, they've killed those teams. Those games have been over halfway through the second quarter, halftime. Like, that's the mark of a really good football team. So, yeah, to me, look, the Colts, especially offensively, any hype is justified when you are winning the way they are winning these games.
You know, Matt, what I've said is this, and so I guess I'll turn it into a question for you. I hear a lot of people say, to your point, and I get it, the Colts haven't beaten anybody. Okay, fine. And I disagree with you on that because Charger, what you just spelled out. But in that event, if somebody were to say about anybody in the NFL right now, well, they haven't beaten anybody, who is somebody? Like in this year's NFL, who is somebody?
Right. I mean, it's a short list, right? I mean, it's an extremely weird year in the NFL. Right now, I'm on my way to Arrowhead Stadium to cover the Monday Night Football game. I'm driving through Iowa, which, by the way, should be a federal crime, having to drive all the way through Iowa. But, realistically, I'm going to watch a 4-3 team. They're the favorites to win the Super Bowl in every sports book in the country. When is the last time a 4-3 team was favored to win anything? Maybe their own division? But, that's the league we're in this year. The Eagles, people have dumped on them all year long. They're 6-2. The Lions, I would say, are another team that you'd respect. They're 5-2. The Packers are 5-1. The Rams, Indianapolis, maybe Buffalo. Even Buffalo has been very gettable this year. It's not a great league, which I think, by the way, makes it a really interesting season because you're going to have a lot of playoff games in January that you don't know which way they're going to go. I would also say, too, look, the Colts now, their schedule is going to get harder here coming up. The game at Pittsburgh, I think they should win, but it's not an easy game. A couple weeks they go to Arrowhead. Let's say they lose either to Kansas City or to a team of that ilk in the next month and a half. Maybe they lose a really hard-fought game and they lose 30-27. Does that mean they're a fraud? If they lose that game by 3 points or 6 points, does that mean – and if they win it, I think that would give them the justification that, yeah, they're the best team in football, but I don't think they need it. Right now, when you're winning by the margins they're winning by, you're really good. I don't know that they need that validation. Maybe nationally they do, they don't today.
By the way, Matt, you can put this one in your phone in the notes thing. Don't do it right now while you're driving on. Have you been through Iowa where you can stop at the world's largest truck stop at least? Have you done that yet?
Oh, bro, I've done that about 25 times in my life. And I got to tell you, it is outrageous. There's dental offices in that place.
Oh yeah, I went in there one time. There's a barber shop, and I thought to myself, the only problem with getting my hair cut in this barber shop is the comb touched the hair of the guy before me, right? And there are some strange looking cats walking around that joint.
There's a lot going on. At one time, there's a line. There's for Einstein Bagels or whatever the hell it was, and I was there. And I'm a New Yorker, so there's a guy in front of me with a Hell's Angels jacket on with a New York patch. And I was like, hey, man, what part of New York? And he turned around and looked at me like he wanted to kill me. I tucked tail and got out of there as fast as humanly possible. But, Iowa is Iowa is a battle to test yourself to see how much you really want to live. I feel like that's what Iowa puts you through. And it's 4.5 hours, westbound and down as it may be.
Listen, you need to stop at Made Right. You need to stop at a Made Right and get a Made Right loose meat sandwich. And when you do it, you will become part Iowan. And you'll be like, you know what?
Wow.
It's all good now. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. Like,
okay, I'll have to give that a shot maybe on the way back tomorrow.
Yes, I'm telling you. If you think Taco Bell Cantina saves downtown Indy, you ain't seen anything like Made Right saves Iowa. I'm just telling you that right now.
Wow.
Matt, outside of Indianapolis, I mean, the Colts are the obvious answer here, but outside of the Colts, tell me a team in the National Football League right now whose record may not overwhelm you, but they've been impressive because they're actually getting the most out of what they have on roster.
Well, there's a few ways to answer that question. I mean, Kansas City, in regards to the fact they're 4-3, if you watch them, it feels like they're almost unstoppable. But to the spirit of your question, there's a few teams you could point to. I mean, look, I would say, so Denver's 6-2, so their record is impressive. And you watch them, and you're like, I don't know how this team is 6-2 with this offense. Now, Dallas is notwithstanding, because Dallas is atrocious defensively. But, you look at them and go, you know what? All right, the team, though, I think that probably is Seattle. Seattle's 5-2, and they had the bye week this week. They're number 1 in DVOA. And you look at the Seahawks, and okay, Jackson Smith and Jigba has been great, and Darnold has proven not to be a fluke. That is not an overwhelming roster. You don't look at Seattle and just go, oh, my God, they got 8 Pro Bowlers and 5 All-Pros. They're fine. But then you watch them play, and they're really good. They're really good. Now, can they win a Super Bowl? I don't know. I'd have a hard time picking them against Philly or Detroit or Green Bay in a playoff game. I think the playoffs are a different animal than the regular season. But I give Seattle a lot of credit in the sense that I think going into the year, I thought they would be fine. I thought they'd compete for a playoff spot. But they've shown to be more than the sum of their parts. And it's a credit to the coaching staff. It's a credit to Darnold. And Smith and Jigba has gone from being an up-and-coming star to a superstar, to being a top 5 to 10 receiver in the NFL.
I like the fact that you thought because the guy's Hell's Angels vest said New York that you guys were going to bond over a bagel together, right?
I thought we could talk. I mean, listen, I got nothing to do with Iowa. And, listen, I had an uncle who may or may not have been in a few interesting organizations in his life, maybe including that one. So I was like, yeah, listen, I could talk to this guy. I as it turns out, could not talk to that guy.
He's like, you thought maybe he knew Uncle Mike. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I was like, all right, this is all right. And then as it turns out, immediately his facial expression was, it was not all right. Yeah, cool. Have a nice day.
Hey, which is if you had to pick one of two right now that would be listed as the MVP for the Indianapolis Colts, would you say Jonathan Taylor or Daniel Jones?
Jones. Taylor's been the better player. Taylor's been unbelievable. I mean, to me right now, my mid-season all-pro team comes out tomorrow for Sports Illustrated. Not to break any shocking news, but Taylor's obviously on my all-pro team. He has been unbelievable. I think he and McCaffrey have been the 2 best running backs in the league, and McCaffrey mostly because of his receiving. Taylor has been spectacular. But I would say Jones from the standpoint that, look, if they got the quarterback play, then let's be honest. A lot of us thought they were going to get coming into the season, whether it be from Jones or from Anthony Richardson. Their record is what right now? I mean, it's maybe because of this a little bit of a softer schedule, maybe it's 5-3, something like. But nobody's sitting here thinking about them as a team that could legitimately get in the AFC playoffs and do a lot of damage. Whereas Jones has not been as good of a quarterback as Taylor has been a running back. But because of the importance of the position and the stability Jones has brought to it, he's only got 300 yards in a game once this year. I believe it was against Denver. But he has been so consistent. He's been accurate. He has not turned the ball over. He's made plays on third down when they've needed it. That is, to me, the difference between Taylor having a great season on a decent team and Taylor having a great season on a team that could really contend for something meaningful. And so, while I think Taylor is certainly the better player, I think Jones is the MVP because the position he plays is just of paramount importance.
How much of this is he walked into a situation with a coach like Shane Steichen that was kind of a quarterback whisperer and had better talent around him than he did in New York? And how much of it is just the natural progression and growth of a quarterback?
I think it's a lot of the former. Look, I'm a big believer that quarterbacks, not all of them. I mean, there are some guys who are just so special, maybe it wouldn't matter. Most guys, the majority of quarterbacks, if their success or failure, it's just, where are you going? Where are you going in the league? I remember last year, I wrote a story in the Vikings. I was up in Minnesota for I think it was 2 or 3 days. Last week of the season, they were going to play Detroit in that game for winner take all in the North. And I was talking to people in the building. And then while I was at the hotel, I was talking to some people around the league to kind of get color for the story on background. And I talked to this one personnel director in the NFL about Darnold. I said, how surprised are you that he's playing this well? And he was like, I'm not. He got drafted by the Jets. They're the Jets. Of course they screwed it up. And that's like a common sentiment. I think that's a lot of how people feel about Jones, where it's like, well, yeah, he went to the Giants. Of course it's the Giants. Now, look, you could argue that Dable is not, a bad coach. You could argue he is a bad, however your opinion is of him. But that organization has stunk now for the better part of 15 years. And I think with Steichen, I remember writing when they signed him, look, they brought him in for 3 reasons. He's got mobility, he's accurate, and he doesn't turn the football over. And they will just give him easy throw after easy throw. Now, to his credit, he's played better than that. He's made some really tough throws, too. But I'm not surprised he's played the best football this year. I'm surprised he's played as well as he has. I didn't have him going for 4,400 yards on my bingo card. But he's been what I thought he'd be, but on steroids. And that is led to a team that is not just winning. They are dominating people. And so, look, I don't know how the back half of the year will play out. I expect them to be very good. I expect him to play well. And I expect them to be hosting at minimum, 1 to 2 playoff games, if not all of them, as the season unfolds.
Do you think Matt Verderam is our guest, by the way? He's on the Jabba House Peel and Pour guest line. His work can be read at SI, including his midseason All-Pro team coming out. Matt, do you believe with Daniel Jones that this is now a foregone conclusion, slam dunk, that the Colts go ahead and lock him in long-term, or do you think they still want to see more, and in particular in the second half when you have Kansas City, San Francisco, Seattle, etc. on the schedule?
I'd want to see the second half because I think that's only prudent, and not because I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, but because, look, you have a lot of evidence prior to this year that Daniel Jones is somewhere between a backup and a low-level starting quarterback. Now, all of a sudden this year, you have evidence that he looks like he's a top 10 quarterback in football. If I'm the Colts, I'm not in some massive rush to extend him right now. You get to the end of the year, if you have to, tag him and then sign him off the tag. I don't think there's this overwhelming, oh my goodness, if we don't sign him before week 11, what's going to happen? Why? There's no big push. Now, I get it. You could argue, well, what if he plays lights out the whole rest of the year? Okay, that's a good problem to have. You pay him a couple extra million a year. So what? Who cares? You get your quarterback. Doesn't matter. I would wait. I would wait to see how it goes because the last thing you want to do is lock him in. I mean, look, this is a much different situation, but I remember, years back, Ryan Fitzpatrick for the Bills was unbelievable the first 4 or 5 weeks of the year, and they gave him what sounds like nothing now, but a $66 million contract. They won 1 game the rest of the year. And I don't think that's going to happen. They have a much bigger sample size, but I would wait it out. I'd see how it goes. If you mentioned, look, their schedule is tough. They have some teams the back half of the year. Even Houston, a team that's not great but very good defensively, they would play them twice. I'd wait it out. But if he continues to play like this, yeah, they're going to open up the wallet. They're not going to let him walk out the door.
What challenges does Pittsburgh present for the Colts? What do the Steelers do well that could perhaps be of Achilles to Indianapolis?
Nothing defensively. They're an absolute tire fire defensively. I mean, defensively between them and Dallas, it was like watching 11 on 6. But look, I think Pittsburgh they've run the ball a lot better since they've really kind of leaned into Jalen Warren. Gainwell's been a nice little change of pace back. So they're going to look. They can run the ball. They're very good in the quick game passing. Now, one thing about them, they very rarely stretch the field. Rodgers has the lowest average depth of target of anybody in the NFL. Like, everything with them, even on longer down and distances, he's short. Big thing in this game for the Colts, got to tackle. He can complete 70% of his passes. It makes no difference because every pass is like 4 yards downfield. You have to tackle. You're not going to get a ton of sacks in this game because it's the way the Steelers play. It's not conducive to it. But got to be, gap the sound assignment defensively against the run. You got to be able to tackle and space the secondary. They're going to try to stretch out. Metcalf, obviously, big body guy, not the easiest guy to bring down. And then look, defensively, the one thing Pittsburgh can do is they can rush the passer, and that's if you can block, you can do whatever you want against that. That secondary is awful, but hold up against Watt and Herbig and Highsmith and Hayward. That's the challenge that defense presents. There's not much else they do well beyond get pressure.
I noticed you went tire fire instead of dumpster fire. Now, I prefer tire fire as well, especially living in Indy, but is there a difference really between tire fire and dumpster fire?
Yeah, I think a dumpster fire is a bigger fire. Like I feel like whatever the hell Cincinnati did defensively yesterday, that's a dumpster fire.
Okay.
You give up 500 automatically, isn't it? The only reason the Bengals haven't fired everybody defensively is it's just too much trouble to do that right now. But yeah, I feel like the dumpster fire is a more all-encompassing inferno.
Tire more isolated, but a lot of smoke, of thick smoke with the tire fire. Just so you know,
a lot of attention being drawn to the tire fire from a wide violent distance. Yeah,
that is correct. All right, Matt. In conclusion, here now, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm going off of your ex-post Twitter bio, which is always all-knowing, it says that you do radio work as well for the Kansas City Sports Network. That is fact, correct?
Yeah, podcast, but yeah, I'm
okay.
On that channel. Yep.
Okay, so you can throw out that fact. If I didn't mention it earlier, it is a fun fact that Patrick Mahomes, when these two teams face each other November 23rd, I believe in the regular season, there is only one franchise in the National Football League that Patrick Mahomes has not beaten in a regular season game, and it happens to be the Indianapolis Colts. And that seemed to be a fait accompli at the beginning of the year, that would end this year, but we shall see what happens in November. But there's your fact that you can share.
That is, I believe, accurate. There's one of the teams, it was like Minnesota beat last year. Yeah, now that game, you can make an argument it's the game of the year. Like, if they continue to play this way, and look, the Chiefs, they got a rough going. I mean, they've got Buffalo and Denver on the road the next 2 weeks before the Indianapolis game. So their next 3 weeks are pretty challenging. But after that, they play nobody. They may not lose another game after that. It will be if the Colts go into Arrowhead and either beat them or play them to the wire, I don't think anybody can say anything nationally anymore. I don't think there's going to be any question about how good the Colts really are.
Matt, we appreciate the time as always, man. Drive safe and enjoy Iowa, all right?
I'm 2 miles from getting out of it. I've never driven faster in my life.
Listen, I'm telling you, I want a full report on Made Right sandwiches next time we talk. Matt Verderam joining us on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. Somebody had mentioned, by the way, last time we had Matt on, which I loved, they said it sounds like Matt just had some of the Wrangler energy from Java House. This, yeah, the guy's nonstop energy. Wrangler Energy, part of the bundle, by the way, if you go to javahouse.com and enter in my name, it will take you right there to where you can get the bundle and 25% off by using our name. But I do love
you mean your name,
Raymond.
Jake25.
Jake25, yes.
Yeah.
Eddie, have you been to Iowa?
I have not. I have not been to Iowa. By the way, last week I mixed the peach tea with the Wrangler Energy. Good stuff.
Matthew from Maine mixed the Liquid Science blue and orange together. Said it was fabulous.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
They should, if you're mixing the blue and the orange, they should call that the Thunder. Right?
You just gave them a marketing idea, Jake.
That's what I do. Iowa, the state of Iowa.
Home of Caitlin Clark.
This is how I knew that I'm getting older. When I was a younger guy, I was a place I would have been, and I'm not, Matt, it is driving through Iowa is absolutely a chore. He is correct in that. I mean, it's It is less than scenic for certain. But West Branch, Iowa is the hometown of Herbert Hoover. His presidential library there, I think, is one of the better ones and very interesting. One of the interesting anecdotes about that I have shared before is that Herbert Hoover, before becoming the president of the United States, his biggest initiative was he was essentially, hunger was his big thing of like making sure that no American went hungry. And it's interesting where he is buried right off of I-80. When you go to his burial site on his presidential site in West Branch, the only thing you see in the background on the horizon is a huge, from like it's probably 2 miles from there, a huge golden arches of McDonald's sign. That's the only thing you see on the horizon, which I always found to be ironic. But nonetheless, I digress. One of the ways that I know I've gotten older is when I was a younger guy, I would have been like, Iowa, man, that is lame. And it's a chore to drive through. But eastern Iowa, the hills of it are beautiful. Western Iowa is basically corn plains, but Des Moines itself is really a nice town. Especially the eastern side of Des Moines, the area where Caitlin Clark's from. It's just people are friendly as heck. It's clean. It's downtown Des Moines is kind of quaint. I kind of like it. But of the 50 states that I asked Matt Verderam the question, who is the team that's getting the most out of its roster right now in the NFL? And Seattle's one of those that he mentioned. As somebody, someday when I'm really bored, I'll do my blog of ranking all 50 states on my experience, having been to 50 of them. But Iowa is one that kind of is like the Seahawks. I feel like it gets the most out of itself. Iowa's kind of underrated.
I thought he would go with the New England Patriots.
That's a really good one. New England is totally off radar, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, totally. Is it under radar or off radar?
I'm not sure, but I'm not sure if they are anymore, Jake, just because of the way Drake May's been balling. I mean, he's got like the 3rd or 5th best odds now to win the MVP.
He's playing at a very high level, no question about it.
Reminds me of the guy that the Colts will see on Sunday.
Of the guy that the Colts will see on Sunday?
Mm-hmm.
You're saying Drake May reminds you of Aaron Rodgers?
He does.
You mean current Aaron Rodgers or former Aaron Rodgers?
Former Aaron Rodgers. Say. Quick release, pinpoint accuracy.
Aaron Rodgers now, and I get it. I'm not making fun of it because I understand the importance of, concussion protection and all that.
Mobility within the pocket, yeah.
Aaron Rodgers wears a helmet where he looks like the Great Gazoo from the Flintstones. It's very odd. I mean, I'm not saying the helmet's odd. I get why he does it, but like he looks out in it. But Aaron Rodgers also just looks frustrated everywhere he is. No matter who he's playing with, no matter what's going on, he always looks frustrated.
There was a report, I forget who had it. I saw it over the weekend. Might have been Mike Garafolo or one of the guys on NFL Network that the Pittsburgh Steelers are trying to convince Aaron Rodgers to come back for another season.
I mean, I could see it. What other options do they have?
He has played well this year, I will say that.
The Colts are through 8 games, and that means in 8 words or fewer. I wanted your thoughts on summary of it, and some of you gave some great answers. I'll read them next. So the Colts are 7-1 through 8 games. They have the best record in the National Football League, just as all of you predicted, myself included. I said 10-7. That seems safe. But I always ask the question after each game, give me your summary after insert name of games they've played for the number of words you can use. Some of the replies yesterday, and there were some good ones, like, for example, from Little Birchie, this team is tailor-made to win games. Now, I did not count the words to make sure that all of these fit within the word parameter. But I like that. Tailor-made. See what he did there? JT MVP. Hashtag why not Indiana. The hashtag alone, trademarked. That gets you in, right? This from Daniel. Oh, my goodness. I was so wrong. Rob says best team in the league. There is no doubt.
Now, I'm trying to figure out what this person is saying. Boiler Tad. Still waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Exactly that.
What other shoe are they referring to?
I think a lot of people feel that way, though, and I think Boiler Tad probably is saying that just in the form of it still doesn't feel real, so you're waiting for, like, wait a minute, where is the piano that's hanging over the coyote? You know, like, where's it going to – what's going to happen here? And part of that is just there's a condition, especially as a Colts fan of the last decade or so, for that to be the case, right? Spencer Schreiner, this is a really good one. So good, it's boring. Photo Matt, the Indianapolis Colts are rocking, don't bother knocking. Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Quarterback. You're not kidding in the fact that he was a lost quarterback that found his place, right? I like this one. Trevion. A golden opportunity. Then in print. Now, see, that's 3 words, right? So he's got 5 words left to play with. So in parentheses, he puts, Ballard, do not screw up. Jonathan Taylor is the unanimous most valuable player. That from Sean. Again, I think the most valuable player is Daniel Jones. I think Taylor is the most outstanding player. But if you had to remove one of the two of them moving forward, without Jonathan Taylor, who has been absolutely outstanding, you still get probably 60% the production at the running back position, and your offense still is able to go at probably 80% efficiency. You take Daniel Jones out, it's Katie bar the door. Nothing against Riley Leonard, but Anthony Richardson's not available, and that makes it even that much more valuable to have him in there. Which leads to my buddy Adam Shookman. Can we have Player of the Year tie? DR, who would have guessed Daniel Jones the answer?
From Marcus, whoever drafted Jonathan Taylor should keep their job.
This from Ross. Still do not extend Ballard. Wow, okay. Okay. This from Michael to that point. Michael Turner. Playing so well, worried Ballard gets an extension. Here's a really good one from Brian Taylor. Glad the Star Wars numbers are sort of back. Because that was, if you recall, Jim Irsay, one of his big things was back when Peyton Manning was playing, when he said, we had all the Star Wars numbers, but we should have had multiple Lombardis because of this. By the way, Eddie, is it freezing in here or is it me?
It's a little cold.
It feels freezing to me in here. We need to get those guys at Love Heating and Air on the case because they got 24-hour on-call maintenance, and they also sponsor our crossover coming up. Expected defensive improvements from experienced coordinator. Now, hold on. How many words is this? / offense shocking. That seems like over 8, but that's okay.
Stole the words from some other people. We're short.
I like this from Big M934. I was wrong about Daniel Jones. My bad. Now, one guy that Eddie grew up with, that Eddie used to spot for in the weight room, is probably going to get...
it was the other way around, Jake. Come on now. Don't you know this?
Tyrone Tracy's probably about to get some more reps, right?
Yeah, good for Tyrone, but in the nature of why it's unfortunate. Cam Scattaboo, dislocated ankle, will be out for the rest of the season.
Interesting, because a couple of weeks ago I was watching him, and I sent a tweet that said something along the lines of, this guy was like the 11th running back selected in the draft, and yet it's unfair to the rest of the roster at Arizona State to say he single-handedly got them in the college football playoff a year ago. I mean, it's not like I watched a lot of Arizona State, but he was so electric and dynamic in that playoff game against Texas. He was virtually unstoppable.
He also had two NFL receivers on that team, Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins, both with the Texans now, and Rocco Beck's a solid quarterback.
But, I mean, he was unbelievable. I mean, in the playoff game against Texas last year, let me see what Scattaboo did. I mean, did you watch that game, the playoff game last year? It was one of those, I think it went into overtime.
He threw for a touchdown. Didn't he catch a touchdown and rush for a touchdown?
Okay, I'm going to look here at the box score to see what he did. Cam Scattaboo last year in that game, you are correct. He threw for a touchdown, a 42-yard touchdown pass. He carried the ball 30 times for 143 yards, and he caught 8 passes for 99 yards. I mean, he was everywhere. Did everything but sell the popcorn. And so I'm like, man, and then he gets into the NFL, and yet it's the same thing. I mean, every time he got in, it was like he was like John Riggins and Jerome Bettis all tied up into one.
And Mike Allstott.
And several people, when I said, like, how does this guy fall this far, then that's when people pointed out, and it's a very good point, with that playing style, his durability is going to be in question. Now, Interesting, because with this injury, he was basically just going out on a pass play, and he planted, and I think that's where I don't know that he got hit, but it was just an awkward plant, and then
he got hit a little bit, but it just kind of looked like his foot got caught in the ground there.
The other story that we talked about earlier, Don Fisher joined us. That will be available. You can listen to it in podcast form at 1075thefan.com. We ask that you wait until after our programming today to be able or to listen to it. But we were talking about just Indiana football and IU and the Colts both. You've kind of run out of superlatives. You can talk all you want about both of them, but now you're at the point where you just expect him to go out there. And, Alex Pillow, who I think might join us sometime this week just to recap his visit to Bloomington and being there, I did hear a funny story where...
Talk about a guy that's been everywhere since the IndyCar season.
It's good. It's what they need, right?
Yes.
So Alex Pillow went to the game, the IndyCar season champion, Indy 500 champion, went to the IU game as part of the broadcast for Fox. And afterwards, he stayed almost the entire game on the sidelines. And at one point, he said to somebody, man, I almost feel bad for UCLA. And I think it was Jeremy Gray from IU that said, well, yeah, but I mean, you lead you lead a field by 2 laps. Do you feel bad? And Pillow said, yeah, but I'm not hurting them. When I lead somebody by 2 laps, I'm not hurting them. In other words, here's a guy from outside of Barcelona, Spain, that is just now kind of learning and understanding the game of American football, and he's watching it, and he's watching Indiana, and he's saying, these guys are just punishing these dudes. That's how resounding it was. And yes, UCLA is in no way, shape, or form going to be confused anytime soon with Pete Carroll's USC teams, but they have played better since they've made a coaching change. They'd won 3 in a row. And Indiana flexed and imposed their will on them. Aiden Fisher, who is now probable for the game against Maryland with the pick 6, and in typical Curt Cignetti Indiana fashion, they just keep going and going. And I'm telling you right now, Ohio State fans got super upset with me on social media this weekend. Ohio State is outstanding. Their defense is historically elite.
There were Ohio State fans complaining that Alberto Mendoza was in the game padding his stats for Heisman. Don't you know that's the brother?
Yeah, that's the little brother, right? The reality is this. Ohio State's outstanding, and they have probably not put their foot down on the accelerator yet. But as of right now, the Indiana Hoosiers, they are well prepared. They are taking care of the football. They are forcing turnovers. They remind me of Brad Stevens' Butler basketball teams in the fact that they know where balls bounce before it bounces there. They know angles that receivers are coming across before they even get there. They know seemingly where the gaps are defensively to penetrate. They are so well prepared. And they've had their hiccup game at Iowa where they figured out a way to win. And they've had their true test at Oregon where they went in there and, as the game went on, just took more control of it. Indiana right now, on October the 26th or 7th or whatever we are right now, I'm not saying it's going to be the case at the end of the year. I don't know where things fall. But as of right now, at the end of October, Indiana is the best team in college football. Ohio State's outstanding. There's no question. But if you factor all things in, including most impressive win, it's Indiana's the best team. Now, right now, ESPN, there are 12 panelists that predict the college football playoff. 7 have Ohio State as the 1 seed. 5 have Indiana as the 1 seed.
Do the first set of rankings come out this week?
The college football rankings?
Yeah.
Is it? I always thought it was the first week in November. You might be right. But it's going to be Ohio State or Indiana, no question. And if you really go by the schedule factoring in, it should be, for right now, Indiana, I think. But they've got some tests, though. It's going to get tricky this weekend at Maryland. Then you got to go to Penn State. I know Penn State's not what we thought. And before we get to the crossover with J&V, my buddy Pat Dyer asked me this question, which is a fabulous question. When was the last time 2 coaches that started in the preseason ranking top 10 both were fired in the middle of the year? And Brian Kelly now has to up and move his family out of LSU. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy, it would seem. Crossover brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air. We'll find out what John's got lined up. We'll do it next. Eddie, it is game number 3 tonight, right?
Yes, and you can hear it right here on the Fan starting at 7 o'clock. Toronto Blue Jays and the Los Angeles Dodgers, series tied at 1.
Unfortunately, and I have really enjoyed watching the postseason, and notably watching, I mean, both of them. The Dodgers are wildly entertaining, no question. They've got great players. Toronto, I've really enjoyed watching the Blue Jays. I've been a diehard fan now for 8 weeks.
Yep. Oh, no, 9. You're going on 9 now.
Is it 9 now?
Last week was 8.
Well, and kidding aside, I was a huge Blue Jays fan in the mid-'80s.
So you know how the cute fella, the Oriole on the front of the Baltimore Orioles has, hey, root for
That's
me.
right. That's right.
What's the one for the Toronto Blue Jays? What's the Blue Jay saying?
Get the hell out of my way.
Oh, that's what he's saying?
I don't know if you know
He's
this
a
or not.
smoker?
Blue Jays very aggressive.
3 packs a day?
Yes. Blue Jays are very aggressive birds. Do you know this? This is a true story. Do you know that blue jays, the birds, like you look out in your little bird feeder and you're like, oh, it's a blue jay. He's so pretty. Blue jays are known to decapitate birds.
Really?
Blue jays do not mess around. They're aggressive. They're territorial. Blue jays are essentially they're nuisances.
They're you of the bird industry.
Huh? Yes. They're like an invasive species of the birds, blue jays. So when you see a blue jay, you are correct. The Baltimore Oriole, hey, root for me, the cute fella on the hat. Blue jay, yeah, excuse me, you trying to steal my smokes?
Is that Corbin?
That's right. J&V has arrived.
Blue Jays are gripey. Historic, you know what? They yell.
That's what, yes.
Yeah, they're gripey.
They're like territorial, aggressive.
Correct.
I mean, they're good to look at, but if they're hanging around your bird feeder, you want to shoo them out of there.
Got Marlon Perkins and Jim Fowler sitting right here breaking down some stuff for you. Wild Kingdom.
I honestly, though, tonight it seems like, Eddie, things have shifted to the advantage LA, and Ohtani's on deck for their pitching rotation. Max Scherzer going tonight, so they need him to reform like 10 year ago style.
Yep. For sure.
J&V has arrived. John, what's on the big show today?
I don't know. James saw me in the hall and said, well, you know, Stephen Holder hadn't gotten a hold of us yet. No, I haven't talked to Eddie Gill. So I would assume me and Jack Squat. Jack Squat's a pretty good guest, though. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Here's Jack Squat.
You know,
Jack Squat joins us now.
I was on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline.
You were, buddy.
Yesterday.
The walk-up, talk-up.
That's right. That was fun yesterday.
Wait, Bowen ditched you? Bowen ditched you?
No, he was on. Matt Taylor had some stuff going on, and I like to bounce around, too, and I wanted to give Aquarian Company a chance to shout out Aquarian Company.
It was fun. We had some fun talking up things and talking about, you know, just IU in general. And
yes, we did.
You know, it's interesting, John. I mentioned this earlier. Indiana and the Colts both kind of feel similar in the form of we've gotten to the point now where we just expect them to get out and roll. And so when they do, it's almost boring. You know what I mean? And I mean, it's not boring. You get what I'm saying. But in other words, you look at it and you just go, we thought they'd do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, especially against Tennessee. Yeah, they went from like 10, what was it, 10-7 at one point, something like that, and it went in a big
turned
hurry.
Quickly, yeah,
big hurry to a blowout right there. It
was unique in the first drive. You and I both were sitting up there yesterday and noticed it. And it's not like they abandoned him, so I can't say that, but it was of note that they went to Jonathan Taylor right out of the box. He got a huge run. He had a huge hole, and then they went like 9 straight passes after that. I mean, you want to talk about, I guess, I don't know if they were just trying to keep things at bay, but, you know, you were kind of wondering, like, well, when are they going to go back to Taylor? And then once they do, you see, obviously, he is playing at a very high level.
He is. He is certainly MVP worthy. I understand. Who was the Matt guy you had on a minute ago?
Matt Verderame.
Oh, yes. Good guy. I mean, listen, there's the debate. It probably just comes down to, like he mentioned, all right, how good would they be with, how good they be without? But I would also argue without Jonathan Taylor, they're drastically different, and maybe Daniel Jones isn't as good. Maybe the playbook closes up a little bit more with Shane Steichen.
Well, you saw what happened. Not as good. You know, when Jones didn't have Saquon Barkley, right? Yeah. How things changed for him, for sure.
But no, we're having some fun unless you're the Pacers, although I think surely, am I going to get a chance to get a 10-dayer out of this? Surely, right? With my relationship with Chad Buchanan?
Yeah, well, he hasn't gotten. Wasn't he trying to get you a pair of shoes or something at one point?
Oh, I was trying to get Siakam had a pair of shoes that I wanted.
So instead,
evidently they were just made for Siakam. They were just made for Siakam. My bad.
Well,
God dang.
Maybe you should work it out where look, spare the efforts on the shoes. Just get me a 10-day. If you can play point right now, they'll take you, right?
Yeah, I don't want to play point though. I want to play off the ball. But they do need. Yeah, I think Siakam can still play a little bit of point. That was what he was doing yesterday.
Almost had a triple-double.
Yeah, it stinks because they were right there last night. If they can squeeze anything out of the way that's going right now, win-wise, but you also remember how it was a year ago. Remember?
I know.
Second, third week of December.
When Neesmith and Nembhard were out, and we're going,
15,
what is going on with them?
It was awful then. But this is much more dire circumstances, no question.
All right, John is up next. He will carry you home for the remainder of the day. Thanks to Don Fisher. Thanks to Mike Chappell, Matt Verderam. We will be back with you at noon tomorrow, and I thank you for listening to Query & Company.